So thank you very much, Professor Iscte. So I will start presenting the material that we have prepared for this session. Good afternoon to everybody. I would like to present the first topics and the project where we are working with. We are working in a project called the Digital Talent Ecosystem, and is a funded project. So all in this session, all of the speakers in this session are integrated in the project in different aspects, but in any of those aspects, they have some role. Well, so the topics. First, I will approach the project and the measures, the instruments that we developed, psychological or psychometric, to be more precise, psychometric instruments that we developed to this particular platform. Then Beatriz will approach the situational judgment tests and the particularities of those kind of instruments. Then Hugo will give two different approaches. One, first approaching the new resumes, that the new kind of resumes that we have, and how to use the techniques of blockchain and the machine learning in the second contribution. Finally, Paulo Almeida will approach the new approach of assessment and recruitment and retention of talents. It will be approached in a business perspective. Paulo is not present, but I have the recording, the video, and I will share it with you. So starting. What's the main point? The main point is that recruitment and selection is all over in terms of organizations. We have this need, we have to recruit, and even it seems costly, we have to keep the best talents. Speaking of IT is a particular and very tempting kind of resources, and the IT workers are very difficult to recruit and to keep because they receive a lot of opportunities. They are very, they are very contacted, and we try to approach this kind of issue looking specifically to IT workers, for IT workers. So, we try to approach this problem in different ways. My approach or my intervention will speak about the assessment and the instruments that are used in that process. So the traditional paper pencil format of instruments is not adequate to all of the context that we have nowadays. So we have internet, we have computers, we have all of those digital instruments, those digital tools. So using paper and pencil takes more time in terms of correction, takes more time in terms of putting the results in a report. It's more difficult to produce automation with that kind of formats. And of course, it does not give a satisfactory answer to all of the needs that we have nowadays. So, and it also brings other problem, which is fatigue. They create much more fatigue than a digital format where you can gamify much more the context. And that's one of the answers that we have in the literature, is that the gamification is an excellent answer to engage participants in the tasks that we ask to do. For example, instruments that have a gamification have much more or much less dropout than paper pencil tasks. So it's much more fun. People try to create competitive scenarios, and we think that is a good solution for the problem that I described. The digital transformation for example, the COVID outbreak lead us to develop this kind of solutions, which is, can I recruit, can I establish or start the recruitment process with tests without the person being here? Yes, you can. You can just deploy the tests in a digital platform. Of course, we have some issues with proctoring. We have to control how the answers were given. It's not different from if any one of you working in a university, you know how problematic it is to do assessments virtually. And of course, we also try to use modern psychometrics as a contribution to analyze the data that we have, the data that we collected using those instruments. Finally, machine learning. Machine learning is a trend, is an hot topic of nowadays, and we also are using it in our approach in this project. Hugo will speak about it. So the project, we are creating, because this is an ongoing project, an integrated digital platform where we have all the ecosystem. So we have all the platform developed to present the CV of the candidate, to collect the data from the instruments, the psychometric instruments, and to have the control of all the career path of the candidate. We developed a user-friendly interface, both for candidates and for managers, which play with the different tools in terms of the recruitment process. And we created the innovative instruments that we will present. Also, we present feedback to the candidates, and we try to engage them using this kind of process, which is give feedback about their performance. Most of if you go to LinkedIn and if you look closely, a lot of candidates complain that they do not receive any kind of feedback from the companies where they apply. So we try to avoid that. So a first glimpse of the platform. So the platform is designed to present in a pleasant way the different instruments. Here we have an example of the platform where you can see each square represents a different test, and we have different dimensions that are being measured. Then you have also the results, the feedback. This is an informative feedback because you can know more about each of these dimensions by clicking in each of the dimensions that you want to know more about. For example, if I went to the humility dimension of the Exaco personality model, I would receive more feedback about this particular dimension. Or for example, extroversion and so on. So we have here 6 dimensions of personality, and we also have, I know that this is in Portuguese, the name of the dimensions, but this is an ongoing project. So we are developing the final product. And also I would like to share with you, we have here some dimensions related with intelligence, but also with other stuff like multitasking, with teamwork and so on. So we can customize and present the feedback with the percentile of that particular candidate. And also a path of the trajectory of that candidate, and this also is present to the candidate in the same page. So everything is really clear to the candidate. So I will now approach some of the measures that we developed. We have a first one, which is related with the visual spatial ability, where we present a map with different numbers in different places, and we give some time to the candidate, and then we change the image, and we want the candidate to to select which of the circles have different numbers from the first image. So it's a really simple task. We present different maps. This test was developed with the support of R, where you use a package with maps. You just select random cities of the world, and then we also randomly select different circles to have different numbers, and that's how you can create an infinite number of levels. So just to say that in the first level, it's really easy. And then, of course, we increase the number of circles with numbers, and also we increase the length of the numbers, not numbers only with one decimal place or with just one unity. We start to increase the difficult level of the test. Then we also have multitasking. So in multitasking, we expected the candidates to have attention in the time that they have, and we also asked them to fulfill these three different tasks that you see: create a word with the letters given, solve the calculus, and solve the puzzle. So they have to do it in the different squares, and also keep the speed in a range which is acceptable. So it's an interesting test, and we hope that candidates engage in this kind of, is an example of gamification where we expect the candidates to be interested in this kind of tasks. Just to say also that in the introduction to each test, we all present those videos that we are seeing to help a better understanding of the expected behavior. Also, numerical reasoning, where you have to just select the next number in the sequence, so a classical example. And we expected the candidates just to insert the number and click enter and continue to the next sequence. Short-term memory, we also created a test where we expect the candidates to memorize the group of words presented, and then they have an interface where they can insert each of the words presented. So really simple, and also fast to understand. The video is really clear in the instructions. Next, we approached verbal reasoning and comprehension. You have to select the sentence with the similar content to the one presented here in red, and it's just a question of understanding the meanings and not necessarily the literal meaning of the words. So it's what we expected here. Next, this one gave us a little bit of, well, what was not that easy to conceive because we have to control the speed of the calculus. So what we expect the candidates to select the calculus that are wrong. And that level, the top level, after we miss a sequence of 3 wrong calculus, the game ends. So of course, the speed starts to increase, the kind of calculus starts to get harder, and that's how, well, we created 300 different calculus, but only 150 were used and fulfilled from one candidate only. So we might, well, I will speak about the changes that we made after. So, not working memory, sorry. So here we have to memorize. Yes, it's working memory. Sorry, it's working memory. You have to understand the issue of the conversation. And then you have a question related with that conversation. And after, you have to remember the last word in each of the, and you see that here we have difficult words, but if you know Portuguese, particularly this one is not that usual. So this is a hard item, not an easy one. But I must say that you are expected to memorize the last words of each balloon speech. So you were expected to arrive to the last one, to the next question. First one is about the issue being debated on the scenario, and then you have to remember the words. Of course, we start to increase the number of balloons and the number of images. So the feedback, I'm almost finishing. So the feedback, we present a radial plot with feedback for each of the candidates. And we also have some of the results here. We have here a range. We scaled the variables to present a score between 0 and 1, so in proportion. And of course, this is just preliminary data, but it's an example how we can present the results to the candidates. So the analysis, we made both dichotomous and polytomous rash models. We saw the person fit, the item separation reliability, the person separation reliability, residuals analysis, the item information curves, of course, the ICCs, and the outfit and infit measures. So just to give an example of a dichotomous item and a polytomous item. So we have here an example of a test with different items, and you can see that we have an increasing sequence of difficulty of the item as expected. Of course, we use this feedback to reorder our items. And so we looked at the different levels of difficulty and we reordered the position of the items in our test. And also we changed items that had a similar difficulty level. And also we increased and decreased some of the items difficulty level. So this particular test worked really well in terms of information. And we have items with different levels of information being captured. Lastly, the polytomous, an example of a polytomous test or instrument. We have here with using partial credits. We have here different categories of probability to being correctly answered in each item. So this test worked as expected. And well, we have to reorder some of the categories, but this is ongoing work, of course, and we are using this data to refine our instruments. I'm giving here the example of only one item of this group of 14 items, and we are using this data to refine our instruments. So next steps, we are collecting data. We will refine and improve the instrument, reducing the items, selecting just the items with better psychometric properties. And of course, after getting more data and applying the refined tests, we will analyze again and try to use the minimum length possible in terms of instruments, in terms of items, to collect the necessary data to give a good input, give good features to applying machine learning. And so now I give you my email and my contact in the internet where you can find me, and I will give the word to Beatriz. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I can now share my screen. Okay. Okay, just let me know if you can now see what I'm sharing. Okay.
Perfect, Beatriz.
Good, thank you. So my name is Beatriz. I'm here to talk to you a bit about situational judgment tests. As Jorge said, I'm part of the team. And I'm at the moment finishing my thesis, my master's thesis at Iscte as well. So I'm giving my first steps in the psychological assessment field. So the DT, as George already said, it's meant to help in the recruitment and selection of IT talents. And basically what I would like to talk to you about today is what situational judgment tests are, why they are becoming increasingly more popular, how they are built, and more specifically about the domains we used it for. So creativity, personality traits, interpersonal tendencies, and emotional intelligence, all in the hopes of being more able to predict work performance and in fact selecting the best candidates for specific job offers. So first of all, the definition. During a normal working day, individuals analyze the situations that they encounter, they make judgments about them, and they respond to them in a way that seems most appropriate to them. And this idea was adopted to create the situational judgment test, which is a method used to evaluate a variety of constructs. So basically, an item of a situational judgment test consists of descriptions of work situations that are relevant to the roles and the environment that candidates will encounter. And then the candidate has to respond using a set of response options that mean different approaches to the situation. It's important to have in mind that there are three stakeholders when talking about these kinds of tests. So we have the author, the administrator, and the participant. So the author or the creator of the test can be basing the test on different assumptions and judgments than the ones that other participants are going to make when responding. And these expectations should be contained through literature review and job analysis, which is what we did, of course. And the administrator currently tends to be replaced by digital mediums using a computer or mobile phone, which is also what we did, of course. So these tests are becoming more and more popular because there's a variety of studies, not only current, but already from, they've actually been around since the 1920s. So there's a lot of studies about these tests, but they show favorable levels of face validity, criterion validity, content, incremental, convergent, and ecological validity. They have small differences between subgroups. They tend to be well received by respondents, so they have favorable reactions. They show more engagement with them. They're easy to administrate. They're easy to score. They bring economic benefits because they take less time to apply, and they allow mass applications to take place. However, they also rely on self-report, so we also have to be careful with the social desirability of these tests. We have to be careful with the cognitive saturation due to the length and complexity of certain items that we include. There's also the familiarization with this testing format, which can have a learning factor to it, and it's also something that can be biased either verbally or with unnecessary visual cues. So as I said, they've been around since the 1920s, but they were reintroduced to the scientific community in 1990 under the assumption that they needed to have a long description of a situation in order to work. So when someone makes a judgment about a situation, this situation gains meaning. It allows the person to understand it, predict it, and have an opinion about it. But then when they make judgments about the answers, this goes beyond the situation because it will include aspects like personal involvement and consequences. And these two types of judgments are different, but they work together and they aren't always congruent. So the truth is that the items can go into a specific domain in which we have a description of a typical situation that takes place in the workplace. And there's also a general domain in which current study says that there might not be a need for a description, or there might just be a need for a vague description of a situation because we are looking for skills that aren't as job specific, but rather important to the organization itself who has ordered the test. So the logic behind the simulations emphasizes the importance of including realistic situations and realistic response options. And the description, when it's specific, should actually add something to the situation and have weight when the interpretation is made of the choice that the participant made. And the answers must also contain all the options or must be inclusive of the behavior that the participant might have, because if it doesn't, then the participant won't answer as truthfully to it. How to present one of these tests? So traditionally, they are, a paper pencil format, but alternative formats have emerged like comic book-like image sequences, video-based, audio-based, and simulations with avatars, which provide a richer assessment environment, but it can also lead to irrelevant contextualization being given, and so it might confuse the participant. The truth is that the more interactive these tests are, the more positive the evaluations from applicants become. The length of the test should be between 3 items, of course, but not exceed 60, because we have to have into account the cognitive saturation of the test itself. Here, I just want to give you an idea of the situated reasoning judgment framework, which explains the 7 steps that participants go through in order to answer the test. So they need to interpret what they are reading, they need to interpret the needs and the demands they are being given, and then they need to interpret the expected outcome and the consequences of their involvement in the situation and what they would actually do in it. And so when they ask themselves, does the cumulative evaluation of the response option exceed the threshold? Then if yes, then they'll choose the response option. If no, they'll go through the cycle again in order to be able to actually answer the test. So the type of instructions that we have, there are 2 categories. We have the expected behavior category, in which we ask participants, after we give them the description, what would they do in that such situation. When we ask for the expected behavior, we want them to answer truthfully. So we are not asking the ideal behavior that they would have in the situation. But then we also have the type of instruction of what should you do. And this is the desired behavior, which does not mean it will be the chosen behavior of the candidate. And what we did in the DTE was actually ask them what would they do in order to understand what their behavior would be like. So there are no objectively correct answers, but we do have previously defined key scores. And the way I'm going to explain to you a bit how the key scores, how we get to them. But first, just to explain that there are 4 types of answers that participants can give. So the multiple response format, they have to choose the top 3 or top 5 options that would represent their behavior. We have the ranking response format, in which they have to order from most to least likely to represent their behavior out of these options, which is the one that we used. We have the Likert scale evaluation, in which participants give each answer option a rating. And then we have best response formats, in which the participants choose the best answer to explain what they would actually do. So more quickly than there's actually written in this slide is that the empirical type of scoring is very common. It often has high validity coefficients compared with other methods, but it can also show dependency on criterion quality, questionable stability and generalizability, and can have capitalization on chance. It relies on item responses and criterion scores of a sample, and decision rules must be created in order to implement empirical keying based on option criterion correlations. This wasn't the one that we chose. We also have theoretical scoring methods that address major criticisms to the previous one. They are more likely to generalize, but they can be more susceptible to faking, and the theory might be flawed or fundamentally incorrect. Items and options can be constructed to reflect the theory, or a theory can be used to identify the best or worst options that participants answer. And options reflecting the theory are scored as correct. The ones that are irrelevant or unrelated are scored as 0. And there's actually a subcategory of this type of scoring, which is called based on levels. So the theory is so complex that we can decompose the theory and actually code according to that. We have the subgrouping scoring method, which is not frequently used. We also did not use it. It attempts to identify naturally occurring groups by sorting individuals based on similar patterns of responding to items. And then we also have the factorial scoring method, which we also didn't use, but it forms construct latent scales based on factor analysis and item correlations. And it can be used when there's not a specific construct being measured, or we can't really identify the theory that gives meaning to the dimensions. We have a hybrid scoring method, which we didn't use, and it's actually something relatively new. So it combines different scoring methods that could potentially increase the predictive power. And keys can also be differentially weighted, such that one key is used with the full scores and the other is fractionally weighted. But problems that come from the different kinds of methods that we are using and combining can fall to the hybrid key as well. So we have to be careful in the way that we balance it. And most importantly, we have to ask ourselves, is combining these keys theoretically justified? And is it possible to implement this key without cross-validation? Now, the one that we actually used is expert-based. So we create keys based on the responses of individuals with substantial knowledge about the topic. And decision rules must be implemented in order to identify consensus around the appropriate answer. So we have two types of ways to do this. So we have comparison of novice versus experts, which is not what we use. We use the subject matter experts with both academics on the topic and managers so that they could be closer to the HR reality that we were trying to get to. So we ask subjects to make judgments about the items, and they will give the options relevance, and they'll judge them based on their criterion. And they examine each item and its option to identify the best and the worst choices, which are scored as correct or incorrect, respectively, and all the other options are scored as 0. So some authors defend that we need at least 1/3 of all the experts that we selected to define what's best and what's worst to give true value to these evaluations. And we also need multiple correct and incorrect answers per item so that we can have a generalized view of what's going on. However, it can happen that some items have all options scored as 0. So an example of the items that we are using, so this is for creativity. It's in Portugal because the DT is in Portugal. And as Jorge said, it's a work in progress. So I'm sure it will be translated. For creativity, we used 5 items, short descriptions, 4 options of answering, and also ranking response format. So we used 5 items to reflect what creativity or the construct of creativity is in an overall look. And just to try to clarify or translate a bit of the item, it says, I have a very conservative boss, and I have a very tight schedule to deliver my first project to this boss. And I'm scared that there might be the possibility of them not liking my job. So what would I do in this situation? Would I try to please my boss and deliver the work exceptionally, but according to the guidelines I've been given? Or would I be super respectful? I would follow the guidelines because I want my job to, I want my boss to like my job and to like the person that I am? Or would I just give my best, try to follow the boss's ideology without even questioning it because he knows the organization? Or would I, try to be creative and go around the guidelines if necessary? So we have the key score that we came up with from both managers and academics' point of view together. Then we have the emotional intelligence example item. The overall construct was measured with 4 items, short descriptions, 4 answer options, and ranking response format as well. The interpersonal tendencies was also measured with 4 items, short descriptions, 4 answer options, and ranking response format as well. And in case you do want to give a closer look to the items when we go to the question session of the symposium, feel free to do that, that'd be fine. We also have the personality traits, in which we had 30 items because we used 5 per dimension of the hexagonal personality structure model, also with short descriptions, 4 answer options, and ranking response format. The example we have here, I think, is consciousness. Is consciousness. And this is still a work in progress, as Jorge said as well. So we are still collecting data to increase our sample size, but the statistical analysis that we've run so far indicate that the items are actually working as we expected them to. And so if you'd like to contact, to make any sort of questions, feel free to do that. I also leave my LinkedIn for, anything you find necessary. And now I'm going to pass the word to the next speaker.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our presentation. And thank you for having me. I'm gonna try to share my screen. Just a second. Okay. I'm not sure if you can see my screen already.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Hugo Amaro. I'm from Instituto Pedro Nunes in Coimbra, Portugal. Okay. I'm a project manager, and my expertise is artificial intelligence and other related areas. First, I'm going to talk a bit about our approach to a new sort of resume. Okay, so in this first presentation, I'm going to not bother you with many details, but I'm going to present you with the problem that we're going to solve and our solution to that problem. And then some issues that we had to consider during the implementation. Okay, I also apologize for being a bit under the weather. Okay, and my voice is a bit strange. The problems that the recruiters are facing right now, and not just the recruiters, but also the talents and the companies that are trying to recruit people. One of the major problems has to do with certifying or validating the curricular information that comes from the resumes that the talents submit to the recruiting company or to the employees. That's because to a certain extent a talent can write whatever he wants on that resume, and it's up to the recruiters to validate that information, something that usually is not easy and involves a lengthy process of contacting institutions and companies that are mentioned in the resumes. Another problem has to do with a poor talent experience that talent feels throughout the process, in terms of having to go through lengthy process and a lot of unnecessary meetings, some interviews with poorly prepared interviewers, the lack of feedback, like Sinval mentioned, in terms of when they apply for a position and they don't get feedback on their results on the interview. Sometimes there are poor or incomplete job requirements for those positions, and several other issues that go through the recruiting process that the talent is submitted to. Also, that there is a lack of transparency in the market. There are lots of wage wars between both talents and the companies, and it's hard for talents to know what their value is or what to expect to get paid on a certain job opportunity. And also in terms of the recruiters, they feel they have a kind of necessity of a support on the decision making when they are selecting candidates, because selecting a candidate for a job opportunity might have some consequences to the company that is going to invest time and money on that talent for a certain position, and then the talent after a year or something might not be the best fit for that position, and they have to get another person, or the talent, it can be on the part of the talent that he might find that was not what he expected from the job and wants to find another position, and all that investment is lost. So those were the problems that we were trying to solve, and the main issue of those problems is in terms of the repetition of processes to certify the skills or the academic events on a person's resume, or even the previous jobs that he had and how he performed on those jobs. So we evaluated other technologies, not just these ones that I'm presenting here. And in terms of trying to solve at least some of those problems, the technologies that we found that were the best solution was to use the blockchain technology, in terms of creating a new kind of digital resume, and artificial intelligence in terms of creating a way to support the recruiters in the overall recruitment process. Okay, I'm not sure if I should first do a little introduction of what blockchain is, but very quickly, and particularly from our perspective on this project, the blockchain technology works a bit like a database, okay? A database where we can store information and access that information. It's a database very different from the traditional databases that we used on previous projects and everyone used on previous projects. I left a bit of a schematic here to represent how the blockchain works in terms of saving the information that goes into the blockchain, and which makes it very different from the traditional database and gives us those properties that are mentioned on the left. So it's called a blockchain because the information that is saved inside is arranged in some blocks that have a limited size, okay? And whenever that block reaches its limited size, is going to be written into the chain. And when it is written into the chain, it goes through a function that is an hash function that converts information. In this case, in most cases, it converts text information into a string bigger than the one that I presented on the top, but similar, okay? And that is the hash of that block. And the block has the information regarding everything, every transaction that is going to be saved on that block, right? But it also contains the hash of the previous block on the blockchain. And that's what connects the blocks, each block that is going to be saved in a chain, in an unbreakable chain, okay? Because the hashes that are in the blocks have to correspond to the previous block's hashes, okay? In order to guarantee that there was no interference, that there was no tampering with the data that is on the chain. What is saved inside these blocks are the transactions made to the data, and through the technologies that I have some icons there on the right, we can access the current state of the data that is inside the blockchain. So if we take Bitcoin as an example, the transactions between the wallets of the clients are the transactions that are saved inside the blocks, and the actual state of the data on the blockchain are the values inside each wallet of each user, okay? So the blockchain has several advantages that allowed us to implement the functionalities that we wanted for our project that I mentioned there on the left. It's a distributed database in terms that the data and the blocks are distributed through lots of nodes that all have to all contain the full data of the chain, and all have to agree in order to a transaction to be made, okay? So it makes the blockchain secure. It also makes all the data synchronized automatically, okay? And through the chaining of blocks that I mentioned before, it makes the information that is inside immutable. And I'm going to mention this a bit further down the line. And in terms of the choice of technology of artificial intelligence, it's a broad term, right? But I'll talk about it in the other presentation, but we felt that it was a good technology to create a support tool for recruiters. So in our implementation, And further down the presentation, we'll better understand why. We kept the talent information on our traditional database that we can see on the left side as NeoTalent DTE. And what we used the blockchain for was to certificate that information that is contained in the talent's resume. So when a client accesses the platform, the information, if he's consulting the resume of a talent, the information regarding that resume comes from the NeoTalent database and is presented on the browser. And then his own client inside his own browser communicates to the blockchain via that smart contract, okay? And what he sends, I'm going to show in the next slide. And what he sends to check if there are certifications is hashes that I will explain further in the presentation. Hashes of the information contained in the talent's resume in order to query the blockchain if there are certifications for that information, okay? So the smart contract searches our data that is saved in the blockchain with those hashes, and whenever he finds a match for an hash, he returns the same hash and the value regarding that certification. So when someone is performing a certification for a skill on a user, or for an event like if the user finished his master's course on informatics, for instance, a user from the university can use our platform and access that talent's resume and certificate that event, the event that he finished the master's course on informatics. And when he uses the platform to do that certification, directly from his browser, the client communicates to the blockchain an hash containing the information regarding that event, the master's course, and a value regarding the person that is giving that certification. And we'll talk about a bit more about that. So, and this probably helps a bit more understanding what I am talking about. So on the left side, we can see the information regarding the talent's resume. He has some professional experience and some academic experience. And this is just an example. There are more other characteristics that we present in the talent's resume, like skills or a proficiency in talking a certain language, okay? And all that information that is on the left side comes directly from our traditional database in the NeoTalent DTE, okay? So at the same time that is checking this page of the talent, his client communicates to the blockchain to check if there are certifications for these events, okay? So the way that the hash is created for each event, and in order to be a unique hash, it combines several elements of the information, like the date when the event happened, an ID, for instance, for the specific master's course that he took, the own ID of the talent, the ID of the university that is saved in our database, okay? And connects all that information and creates an hash, a unique hash for that event that can be matched inside the blockchain to check if there is a certification or not, okay? So when I talked about values of the person that is giving this certification, this is just one example amongst many, but if a talent states that he has a skill like Java programming, okay, and a friend of him, like in LinkedIn, comes and certificates that his friend really has that Java skill, we want save that certification because it has some value, right? But the value, if instead of this friend, if a former employer comes and certificates that talent because of a project that he was in, that he has that Java skills, we want to give more value to the certification of the employer, because it's more trustworthy and not just and not subject to issues like exchanging certifications between friends, like it happens on LinkedIn. Okay, so going further and trying not to pass time a lot, we implemented the solution this way, partly because of the general data protection regulation from the European Union, because the information that is going to the blockchain, although the current state of the data that is in there takes into consideration data that has been edited or data that has been erased, for all effects and purposes, the transactions when that data was introduced in the blockchain is still in there and is still saved. And although it's almost unfeasible for someone to go and retrieve that data, it is possible. And by being possible, some scholars understand that it is a violation of the GDPR. Okay, so the main rights that the GDPR protects that we have to take into consideration are those that I present here, right? And first I talked about the right to ratification and the right to erasure, but the other rights were also considered by us, particularly in terms of the right to be informed and the right of access. Okay, so the talent has always access to this full information that is that the platform contains regarding him. And we also try to give the talents a way to extract their data in terms of making that data portable. So going quickly through it again. So we don't save any personal information in the blockchain to respect the GDPR. So if a user wants to delete the data that is on the platform, it is actually deleted on our traditional database. We use the blockchain mainly for the certificates. And like I explained before, the certificates are linked to the actual information, like the academic institution, the date of the event, and the identity of the talent. But since the information is hashed, we cannot derive the original information from the hash. So the private information is not actually saved inside the blockchain. And as such, we can erase the information in respect to the GDPR, as we can ratify any wrong information that was present there. Another issue that I'm going to address very quickly is that one of the advantages of the blockchain is that, and this is particularly important in terms of it's one of the great advantages of crypto coins, right? The information that is inside the blockchain is considered very trustfulness, because of the process that the transactions are validated and saved in the blockchain. There is no reason not to trust the information that is in there. But when we move to other types of data that are not cryptocurrencies, right? For instance, I want to save information for whatever reason about the weather in some place, okay, the weather conditions. I have to make sure that the information that I collect to insert into the blockchain is actually truth, in order to be able to trust it afterwards when I'm going to retrieve it again. And we have the same problem in our platforms, because what we are saving are the certifications, right? So we have to create a system that makes sure that the people, the users that are going to have access to insert those certifications are the people that are entitled to do so. And one way that we approach this is the way that we give access to certain functionalities that regard the blockchain inside our platform to institutional users and company users and our own recruiters, okay? And another information is in terms of that value that I mentioned before, that by assigning different values to different types of users that are going to insert those certifications, we can have a sort of measurement of how much we can trust that information. That's all I have in terms of the blockchain. I try not to go too deep because it's a complex theme, but if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them during the question and answer later. So I'll move on to the artificial intelligence presentation right now, since I'm the one that is going to present it. What I'm going to try and talk about a bit is the three different recommendation engines that we implemented, and we are implementing is a work in progress still for our recruitment platform. Okay, so we want the recommendation system and the AI to work to support the recruiter and not to replace the recruiter. So what we expect from our solution is that the recruiter has a sort of smart tool that helps him perform his job better. And when we say better, we mean to improve the recruiter's efficiency, okay? Because right now, and when the recruiter is trying to handle more and more talents and respond to more and more job opportunities in the same amount of time, he has to go through a lot of talents and their skills and their previous jobs, their experience, their expected wages, and a lot of information in order to pick the best selection of candidates for that job opportunity. And that leads to errors, unintended errors, of course. But when we are sifting through a lot of information, we can miss something, miss the right talent for a given company that could be the perfect fit for that company. And also by providing a tool that supports the recruiter in using an approach that somehow emulates the human process that we expect the recruiter to do, right? We can make some considerations in order to remove any bias regarding gender or sex when the selection is made. So going just a bit into what our system does. It's a several steps engine, okay, or pipeline if you want to call it that. And I'm going to just address a few of those steps. So we use first we use a technique that is in a way similar to what multiple movie recommendations engines use, okay? And what that does is that it allows to infer missing information from the data set that we have of skills and characteristics. For instance, and the movie recommendation is a good example to explain. If in movie recommendation, when someone has a set of movies that he saw and that he enjoyed watching, and those movies share some similarities and some characteristics, right? And then we have another user that watched a subset of those movies and also enjoyed them, but hasn't seen all of them from the first user, right? We can infer that movies that are in the set of the first user are probably good movies to recommend to the second user, since the characteristics in movies that they enjoy are very similar. And we can do something similar here, and that's what we do. Of course, we have a lot of more considerations to take into account, right? But if a person has a set of skills that are all related to each other, we can use that information to fill in missing data about other users' sets of skills. And that's one of the steps that we do in terms to fill in missing information that was not filled in by recruiters, or not stated by the talent itself, okay, in terms of the skills that he has. Then another step that we have on our recommendation pipeline is that we have a sort of matrix factorization when we match our data set of talents and their skills and characteristics to a vector of the job opportunities requirements. And we are going to calculate a sort of rank for every talent that we have on our database. And that rank is going to be used further down our pipeline, okay? In this step, we don't just consider the skills that talent have, but we consider our other characteristics, like the talent assessment framework results that my colleagues speak before, and also the experience the talent has, the wage that is looking for, if his location is near the location of the job opportunity or if he's available to relocate, right? And this is one of the steps that we make extra consideration to remove any gender or race or any sort of discriminatory characteristic that the system can consider it in terms of ranking the talents. Sorry. So after those steps, and those ranks that we calculate are just one of the variables that we then feed to our artificial intelligence or machine learning engine that is behind the recommendation engine, right? We also do other calculations and get other variables that are going to be fed onto the system. And those considerations involve going through past job opportunities and what talents were placed on those job opportunities and the characteristics that talents had, okay, in order to try and do a better match on this job opportunity with the talents that we have. And we also introduce some considerations regarding the employer that has submitted that job opportunity, because companies also have a sort of personality and a sort of better adaptability to certain characteristics in their employees. Okay, so we go to the opportunities that existed in the past for that company, and we also try to get a sense of the characteristics that the talents that have been placed there and that have had success in that company, and try to match also those characteristics with the talents that we currently have available to the new job opportunity. So from the talent recommendation, and let me just go back to mention that this talent recommendation, what is going to output is a list of talents that have a certain score in terms of how good they are for a certain job opportunity or for a certain set of constraints and requirements. Then we have also our team recommendation engine, okay, and here it works a bit different, because what we are trying to recommend in a one shot is a group of talents that are going to be the best team to fulfill a project. Okay, our client might have a project that he wants to implement, and that project has some requirements in terms of skills, in terms of roles that the developers have to have. And what we do is try to build a team considering multiple characteristics that are required inside a team to recommend the best group of people. And what we try to build is a team that has a good synergy between them. So we might want to include someone that has a sort of leadership skill for the team. And we most likely want to include talents that have experience in the job at hand, right? So that the job, that the implementation of the project is successful. But we also want to promote junior talents in order to develop their skills as well. And what we use in this team recommendation, we also use the talent recommendation engine in order to provide us scores for certain constraints and requirements for each position in the team. And in terms of building the team, right, what we use is a sort of genetic algorithm that will build the team. And by using genetic algorithm with dynamic fitness calculation for each generation or for each choice of talents, and that dynamic fitness calculation is done according to the actual project that we are trying to fulfill, or the job opportunity requests that were made by the client. We perform a multi-objective optimization, right, in order to have the best score of the team as a whole. And then we present to the recruiters several teams that he might build, from which you might pick, that better fulfill the requirements of that project. And finally, we have a career recommendation engine, and this one is meant to be used by the talents themselves. And this is also a work in progress, more than the previous ones. But here we want the talent to be able to tell the system, or to some way influence or influence what his final destination in his career path is, right? We want him to be able to tell us if he would like to, in some years, be a project manager, or if he wants just to be a senior specialized developer in a certain area, and give other information to the system that will allow the system to make him recommendations in order to follow a path that will lead to that destination. So what we do here is try to match the paths of already existing talents that are near or already achieved the final destination that this talent wants, right? And we try to recommend training programs, or try to recommend job opportunities that the talent should apply for, or try to recommend to the talent when he should aim for a job opportunity with a better wage, in order to follow that path and reach that destination that he wants, or be near it in some years into the future. Okay, so I hope I didn't go way past my time. You have my information in this slide if you want to contact me, but I'll be available for questions afterwards. And now I pass the word to Sinval again.
So thank you, Hugo, for the two nice presentations, and thank you, Beatriz. Now I will show you the presentation produced by Paulo, which cannot be present here, but I will share the video with the sound. So the floor is yours, Paulo.
Hi everyone, my name is Paulo Almeida. I'm Head of Innovation and Transformation at NeoTalent and Digital Talent Ecosystem Project Director. I'd like to start by apologizing for the fact that I'm not able to be live at the EAPA Digital event. I'm having a surgery and today I have to do an exam. To be honest, I'd prefer be with you in person rather than inside the CAT scan machine. That's where I'm probably right now. But if this new world we are currently living in taught us anything, is that if we can change entire organizations and business models overnight, doing a simple online presentation will be a piece of cake. So far, during this symposium, we've shared with you some of the specific research we are doing within our project. But where does this come from? What led us to do this type of research? What business challenges are we facing? That's the focus of my presentation. Let's start by having a glimpse of one day in the life of three personas. The first person I'd like to present you is Candida. She's a tech professional. She wants to learn and she enjoys experimenting new things. She's willing to invest in her knowledge and in herself. She is not actively looking for a new job, but wants to know her options. She's constantly contacted via LinkedIn, and yet recruiters ask her for her CV. When she applies or goes through a recruitment process, she has to fill multiple forms, go through multiple interviews. In those interviews, she's asked a lot of questions and has to solve some exercises. Sometimes she even has to answer some assessments, almost the same assessments as the ones she has done in the past. At the end, the role or the company not even makes any sense to her. And on top of that, sometimes she doesn't get any feedback at all. And in the next time she decides to apply to another role, everything starts all over again. Now let's meet Ricardo, the recruiter. Since he doesn't get any applications via the job ads he posts, he lives inside LinkedIn. He's a Boolean search and keyword search nerd. The problem is when the best information you can get to find candidates is something like, we just need another Java developer with 2 years experience. He then typically breathes in and out and tries to get more intelligence to help him find, engage, and convince someone to hear about a new role. Typically, at the same time, he has to run 50 open positions. He tries to prepare himself the best he can when he has an interview with a potential candidate. Some candidates seem great, others not at all. Some candidates have awesomely detailed CVs, others not even take the time to send one. His gut feeling kicks in too many times when it comes to redirect candidates to an open role. He gets very, very frustrated when he loses great candidates after a long time waiting for an hiring manager to give some feedback. Finally, there's Cleo, the client. She's an IT manager with 3 big projects ongoing. Requirements change way too often and way too fast, but teams still must be assembled in record time. Since there is no internal capacity, she has to get help from external talent providers. Only 2 providers was her initial goal, but today she already has to work with 10 different providers. She still is trying to understand why some of those providers send her candidates that are completely off target. She's starting to lose her mind and having little to no energy to do the provider's work, because basically they just dump CVs and leave Cleo to decide which one she wants. Then, just after a few months, some of those consultants leave the project and the company. These daily life parodies I've just done are not far from reality. Those are consequences, real consequences of bigger and impactful global movements. Let's start with technology. Technology is central and decisive to the success of many, many businesses. And because of that, demand for digital skills has skyrocketed to levels never seen before. Currently, talent offer and the speed new talent is created doesn't keep up with demand. In 2019, CompTIA estimated that in US alone, nearly 1 million IT job openings were left unfulfilled. Because of this, worldwide, the tech market, is completely candidate-driven, and candidates run the show. And this is not a joke. We've had a couple of years ago a candidate that decided a job offer because of the number of subway interchanges he had to do in order to get to his workplace. So this is a symptom of this crazy market we are currently living in. But this fast-paced market has also its tool in talent itself, because it stresses out the need for talent to keep up with new and emerging technologies, avoiding being obsolete, and focusing on reskilling and upskilling their skills. New talent pools are what every employer currently is trying to find, either on different countries, with remote workforce, and ultimately trying to tap the untapped potential that is out there. Then there is a new attitude towards work. A new generation of professionals has taken control of their own careers. They move by purpose and by the meaning behind what they do. It's a generation tailored to be a serial employment generation. And the odds that after 1 or 2 years they want a new challenge, it's very high. In fact, in a recent survey done by a Portuguese tech startup called Landing Jobs, tech professionals change jobs every 1.5 to 2.3 years. This is mind-blowing. In our own reality, confirms it. Back in 2020, 87 of the leaves we had from our company had less than 3 years of working with us. And they seek new projects, new technologies, or new realities. This creates a huge pressure on companies to retain knowledge and replace talent. Also, we believe that recruitment is broken. It's hard to find and attract talent. It's hard to assess and validate information. We basically are basing our selection process in data that can be manipulated, either CVs or interviews, data that it's hard to verify, such as knowledge, or data that it's related to characteristics not relevant at all to the success in the role. It's hard to do the right match. We have to go through CVs, GPAs, academic and training information, past experience, interviews, outputs, assessment results, multiple data that somehow we must correlate with job descriptions, requirements, or even client traits, mostly manually, empirically, and inevitably leaving relevant data out. Also, it's very, very easy to make mistakes, to introduce bias, either consciously or unconsciously. And at the end, it's a bad experience for everyone. Professional reputation, it's not transferable, so both candidate and recruiters must go through multiple steps over and over again. Currently, the great motor for transformation is technology. This transformation already has reached multiple businesses and will keep reaching the remaining ones. With technology and digital business models, disruptive companies like Tesla, Amazon, Netflix, Uber, storm into once stable sectors, change the rules, introduce new value propositions, and change, challenge, or even destroy the incumbent's position. we must say digital transformation is inevitable. And the pandemic we are currently living has accelerated even more this movement. In some cases, estimates say that digital transformation has accelerated years in the future because of the pandemic. Within this reality, the way companies create, manage, and adapt their workforce must keep up with the constant change and constant need to rapidly access talent. Ultimately, we believe that the work market and the recruitment and staffing services market will be transformed. The role of companies such as our own New Talent gets a reinforced importance as it can provide the means to access scarce talent in a more agile way. How will this market work? What will be the river of talent? We don't know yet, but we sure want to have a say in it. And this is how the Digital Talent ecosystem was born. We embrace this project as the vehicle to transform New Talent itself and the market we operate in. It's an applied research project where an industry player such as ourselves join efforts with two research entities, Iscte and Instituto Pedro. These entities are from two opposite fields, social sciences and engineering. What is this project? What added value and